everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new, and welcome back if you're not. For anyone who's new, I am Anexis, and I am someone who loves stories, and this is my review for A Light in the Flame by Jennifer L. Armentrout. By the way, I do warn about it in the video, but spoilers. I also give some content warnings throughout the video, which I cannot, I think it was a mention of suicide, I think is what I mentioned. But I do give verbal content warnings, so keep track of those. But this video is very long, and I'm not apologizing for it because I had a lot to talk about. But I hope you enjoy it. Before we start, I just wanted to remind you that if you like this video and my content, to consider to give it a like and also leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on A Light in the Flame because I want to talk about it. And also consider subscribing and giving the video a like and subscribing if you like my content. I post usually on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. On Wednesdays, I post writing and vlogs, like writing videos and vlogs and stuff like that. Usually I'm writing in all the vlogs, or most of them. Fridays I react to things. Now we're going back to Overlord. And on Sundays I give reviews, although this is a bonus review due to the fact that the book just came out, and I'll be doing a blind anticipate on it soon, on another one, if we have a description soon. So we have that. So consider doing that. And if you want to see my actual writing, you can also subscribe to my blog. I post reviews there as well on Sundays. Some of the reviews that I post on my blog you get to see later on in my channel, and so on and so forth. But you can definitely see some of my creative work there as well, including my short story, Daughter of Death. So feel free to subscribe to my blog and browse my website. It will be linked in the description. Anything else I need to say? Oh, I usually post videos at 5 a.m. if possible. My blog posts also come out at 5 a.m. on Sundays. But that's it. Enjoy the video and let me know your thoughts. Oh, something else I forgot to mention, you guys. In my description, you will find the link to the Flesh and Fire playlist, the Blood and Ash playlist, and you'll find links for other series as well. So make sure to check the description. It's time! It is time to get the review for A Light in the Flame out to y'all. Now, if you have been watching my videos on my videos this last month, specifically on Fridays, you know that I have been reacting to the first 5 chapters. I was able to do this because I signed up for Jennifer L. Armentrout's newsletter. So I signed up for their newsletter, and the newsletter usually gives you some, if they have like bonus scenes and like and things like that, it'll be available for those to read. They don't be sent to me. Like one of the things I got sent the first thing I got sent, for example, when I signed up for the newsletter, was a what is that called? I got a I got like it was a I remember. It was a bonus scene for from Blood and Ash, from Blood and Ash, where it was the Red Pearl scene, but like with Castile's point of view. So yeah, it's great. So that's how I got the first 5 chapters, and I was reacting to them. It was part of a sampler. So if you have been paying attention to that, then you know I do have that. So yeah, so that is all to say that I have been making a lot of Flesh and Fire content, and you have no idea how happy I am for that. And now I'm going to be reviewing the book, and I'm super excited for it. So I'm going to go into spoilers when need be. I don't know if I'm going to go into spoilers, but know that there's a possibility of them. I'll just let you know when I am going. But for now, let us be reminded of the synopsis. From #1 New York Times best-selling author Jennifer L. Armentrout comes book 2 in her Flesh and Fire series. The only one who can save Sarah now is the one she spent her life planning to kill. The truth about Sarah's plan is out, shattering the fragile trust forged between her and Niktos. Surrounded by those distrustful of her, all Sarah has is her duty. She will do anything to end Colas, the false king of gods, and his tyrannical rule of Elysium, thus stopping the threat he poses to the mortal realm. Niktos has a plan though, and as they work together, the last thing they need is the undeniable, scorching passion that continues to ignite between them. Sarah cannot afford to fall for the tortured primal, not when a life no longer bound to a destiny she never wanted is more attainable than ever. But memories of their shared pleasure and unrivaled desire are a siren's call impossible to resist. And as Sarah begins to realize that she wants to be more than a consort in name only, the danger surrounding them intensifies. The attacks on the Shadowlands are increasing, and when Colas summons them to court, a whole new risk becomes apparent. The primal power of life is growing inside her, pushing her closer to the end of her culling. And without Niktos' love, an emotion he's incapable of feeling, she won't survive her ascension. That is, if she even makes it to her ascension and Colas doesn't get to her first, because time is running out for both her and the realms. Now, first of all, let's just clarify that this book takes place right after, literally right after literally right after A Shadow in the Ember. Like, it's kind of like From Blood and Ash, right? So From Blood and Ash, I explained this I think in the first chapter, but I'm gonna do it again because it makes sense. So From Blood and Ash ended with Castile saying something along the lines of like, we're going to Atlantia, and I think and he was like, we are going to marry my princess. Like, that is how the line ended. This and then it repeats the line in the next book, in the first chapter of the next book, where of course Poppy rejects his proposal, because what kind of person randomly just says we're gonna marry without any private talking whatsoever? So yeah, so that's a thing, right? This book and A Light in the Flame ends with him telling her like she is basically like the heir of skies and seas, a king and a queen instead of a king, you're the primal of life. That same line is excuse me, is repeated. That same line is repeated in the first chapter. So we start from there. So it literally picks up right after. Now, I reacted to this book before I reacted to the chapters of this book before rereading A Shadow in the Ember. But I did end up rereading A Shadow in the Ember, so I actually read the book twice this year. I did end up rereading the book, and and you know, I got to experience the story kind of fully. Like, I was I experienced the books for what is it called, the series From Blood and Ash, because since it basically like stands right at since it basically picks up right after, it is really easy to just kind of experience it that way. So that's what I did. So it starts there, and we have a whole lot of things happening in the story. There's so much that happens, but as usual, it's very as I expect it to be. It's very well written. First of all, of course it is, and things kind of start connecting, and the plot is like in Armentrout's other books. Like if you read Blood and Ash, um, the Queen of Flesh and Fire, and the Gilded Bone specifically, I feel like the War of Two Queens is a little bit more plot driven. But if you read the those three books, they are heavily character driven, where it is where you don't spend a lot of time on the actual plot. It's there, but you spend more time doing other things, whether those are the characters exploring their physical relationship, or they're in their general relationships, or just other things happening, like daily life stuff, which is why I know that some people say like nothing happens until the end, but it is something I genuinely enjoy. So I'm fine with that kind of thing, right? So that's kind of the same this kind of follows the same thing. So the plot has very little to do. We see it working, but we also, it kind of takes more like a backstage seat, as I kind of expected it to. So it's the same thing happened in A Light in the Flame. So like the summoning, for example, from Colas happens more at the end than anything else. It happens more, not more at the end, but like it happens kind of like in the last third of the story, before they get married and she becomes a consort, and before everything works out. So that's kind of how it works. But I'm just going to go into some spoilers because I need to discuss my feelings on this book. I need to talk about spoilers. I need to talk about the fact that I read it in 2 days and how happy I was. I wasn't happy because I read it in 2 days. I was just happy with the events, and I was just like, I was so excited. I do have some slight predictions where it's just like the way I do have some predictions of the third book. Unfortunately, though, we don't have a synopsis, and the book doesn't have a title. So because the third book doesn't have a title, I don't want to make a video on predictions alone. I don't want to make a blind anticipates about it because I don't have a title. I could technically do it and just say Flesh and Fire Book 3, but I want to have something, at least the title. But since I don't have one, I'm going to talk about my one prediction or a couple of predictions later. Because this book took some turns that I did not expect. Because here's the thing. These books are written in a very similar format to Blood and Ash. Like, Castile and Nyctos seem to like their women to be stabby. For lack of better words, they seem to like their women to be stabby. And because of that, they just, I don't know, they just seem to like their women to be stabby. And I don't know, I like it. It's cool. But they also have some similar reactions to them, except that things worked out a little bit different. So, for example, in A Shadow in the Ember, we end the book when it is realized, that where Sarah's plans are realized, where it is discovered that she wanted to seduce Nyctos, make him fall in love with her, become his weakness so she can kill him, end the deal, and in her mind, hopefully end the rot for her and the suffering of Lasagna, and in which case she would most likely die because most likely Nectas would have killed her, as would have pretty much his guards in general. They would have just killed her, and she knew this. She was ready to die, and it was discovered. Of course, Nyctos is mad at her by the end of A Shadow in the Ember. He calls her an actress, and a couple of other things. There's even hate sex happening at the end of that book. There is a little bit of hate sex. So a lot of things happen, right? So that happens. But in this book, um, but when in Blood and Ash, this happens with Castile too, where he kind of had a plan to exchange Poppy. Oh, I should have said spoilers for Blood and Ash too, but I didn't. Okay, where his plan is to take Poppy, the maiden, and exchange her for his brother, his older brother, who has been captured, but he didn't expect to fall in love with her. And he does warn her, like, whatever happens, like, promise you will remember this, right? And in the second book of A Shadow in the Ember, Nyctos is no longer mad at her. He did understand, and unlike some of his guards, or the gods that are loyal to him, he did forgive her. And what he explains in this book is that he is mad at her because she has no value. She does not value her life. So that is why in the beginning he was extremely mad at her, because she did not value her life. And it's part of the reason he was very mad at her in the second book, because she found out from Holland that she is his weakness. Not the primal of deaths, but Colas, the false primal of life, that she is his weakness, because you also find out at the end of A Shadow in the Ember that she is Zutoria. She is the incarnation of Zutoria. Although we do find out in this book that there are two souls, so Zutoria is part of her. Like, because she specifically says she isn't Zutoria. She makes a Sarah makes a point of saying, I'm not Zutoria. I'm like an incarnation of her, but I'm not Zutoria. I'm not her. And there is a point where when she is summoned by Colas, he basically, in order to pay, because Nyctos displeased him by not asking his blessing to get a consort, even though he made excuses, of course. He's like, oh, I thought you'd be busy, he pretended to be loyal and everything. The excuse he made was that, we thought you'd be too busy for that, you do too many great things for that, and I assumed you were bringing specific people back to life. Like, there were even, since people were being brought back to life and ascended in the Shadowlands, Nyctos was like, oh, I had assumed you were doing it, right? Like, he made it so that it makes it look like Nyctos is extremely loyal to Colas. And the thing he said, it was like, because he got displeased, the payment was to take the life of a Draken. And Sarah basically said, it was my fault, I was not afraid. Like, she's like, and he was like, it was my fault, I asked him not to do it. And Colas asks if she's afraid of him. He's like, no, I'm not afraid of you. How could I be afraid of you? I was just, nervous. And I think she said, like, I was just nervous and worried. I thought you had other things to do or whatever. So I asked him not to do that, and he did it for me. So Sarah is the one that gets asked to take the Draken's life, even though Nyctos does try to intervene, but he's like, no, it'll be her. And she is asked to take the Draken's life. And during that time, she feels a rage, like a really strong rage that isn't hers. Like, she recognizes that it isn't hers. And it's like, she feels this really strong rage, and she's like, vengeance, power, all of that will be mine. Like, she has that thing. Like, she feels that strong rage. Nyctos asks her, like, what is that rage that you felt? I felt some rage, but I felt like it wasn't hers. Oh, it wasn't yours. And she's like, it was Zutoria's. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not her or whatever. And he's like, I think you have been right for the whole time. You're not Zutoria. You might have two souls in you, yours and Zutoria's. So that is something that gets confirmed. But what she does find out, though, from Holland, is that she is Colas's weakness, and she could kill him. So we ended chapter 5 in the reactions, where she basically climbs down the balcony to escape and try to get to to Colas's court, in order to basically do what she was originally planning to do to Nyctos, do it specifically to Colas and kill him. She ends up, unfortunately, in the Redwoods. Wait, or the Dying Redwoods, or the Dying Woods. I can't remember the names, but there were shades, and she basically touched one, and she kind of almost brought life to them, and that like the shade literally recognized her, and he's like, Lisa. It was very interesting, and then Niktos finds her, and she almost kills him because she loses control of her ether and almost attacks, and then Nectus, adorable Nectus, he is there protecting her. He literally went to protect her, and he's like, it's like, why is he? I remember that Sarah did not recognize what Nectus was doing, and you get Niktos. Oh, he's protecting you from. He's not protecting me from you. He's protecting you from me, because I could, in case I lose any control of it or whatever. He's like, and she got a little confused. Excuse me. So yeah, she unintentionally hit Niktos with the blast of ether, and she later does explain to Niktos what she was planning to do, and he's like, "You were really planning to do that? Like, okay, but what, like, do you not value your life?" He's like, "Yeah, I value my life, but also that's not important right now." And so he made it. He made her kind of sleep with him, and they ended up sleeping in his chambers and everything. And one of the interesting things that happened that I love is he hugs her really tightly to him, and he's like, "Promise me you're not going to do that again." And she did promise, even though she wasn't too sure what to do with that, right? So she, yeah. So he did. So she did promise that, and it was very adorable because he did get mad at her and that day because she could not, because she didn't value her life enough. We also, so that's kind of why he got mad, right? But they at the end continue to build a relationship, and they also make a deal to um, because he can't quote unquote love because he took his cardia. He had I think her name is Maya take his cardia, um, so that's why he cannot fall in love. But he can care about people, but he can't fall in love, and he considers care and love to be like different. So yeah. So he but he still cares a lot about her, and he is very thoughtful to her, and they build a relationship, but they do make a deal where they could be physical with each other for pleasure's sake. Even though she does realize eventually that she loves him, and she falls in love with him. It's very cute because he can't love her, but he probably doesn't know that she loves him. She got my favorite part is when he's like, "Is that some emotion that you felt?" It was like chocolate and strawberries, and it's really cute because it reminded me a lot of Blood and Ash with Poppy, where she's like, love is basically like chocolate dipped berries, and it's adorable. So it's lovely that I like the reference. But what I was saying is that when it comes to Blood and Ash in the second book, in A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, Poppy was mad for most of the things with Castile. While she had an okay relationship that she built, she was still mad that he was planning to use her. So that is the difference between Poppy and like the and Niktos in that area, where she was mad most of the way. Like Poppy was mad, and Niktos, I guess because um if you look at the age difference, Niktos is probably about 200 years maybe. Um so he's probably about 200 years, right? So, and Poppy was like 20. Well, or 19. I think she was 19. 19 or 20. I can't really remember. I'm thinking it's 19. But basically the age difference that in and the fact that he was at least 200 years, or at least just in centuries, and because he has gone through a lot of things, he kind of understood Sarah a little bit more than Poppy understood Castile right away. It took Poppy some time to understand Castile's reasoning. And even when she did understand it, she was still mad, which makes sense because of course, even if you can understand someone's reasoning, but that does not mean you have to necessarily forgive that what they did. Feelings are valid, no matter if they're angry, no matter if you had a good reason. Feelings of anger are valid, and that is something that I think that Jennifer L. Armentrout did very well in Blood and Ash. And here, though we don't have Nikto's angry, so we kind of have the consequences of everybody else being slightly angry at her or more angry at her because Nektas kind of understood. Then again, he's also older than Ash or Niktos, whatever you want to call it. He's also older than him, and he understood her and kind of treats her like his own daughter, in my opinion, which is kind of adorable. Like there were moments she's like, whatever happened, you can always talk to me. It was very adorable. It was very cute, and we also get to see Jadis really trusting Sarah. I'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. It took turns in this series specifically took turns in interesting ways, which is why I think that it surprised me because it was written in a similar format where one character had a plan, the other character eventually finds out, and then one character would either be mad or upset about it. So it was written in that format, but the difference between is that in Blood and Ash, we got to feel more of Poppy's anger, and in Flesh and Fire, he's not extremely mad at her. Yeah, he's mad, but he's not like super mad at her. He is able to understand and forgive. Everybody else is mad at her on his behalf because he has gone through a lot, in seemingly including imprisonment. And we find out the Vesis also used him, and he has gone through a lot in his time. We find out a lot of things throughout this book, which I thought were really, really interesting. So that it took interesting turns, which is why I want to talk about these turns. So one of the things a lot of this book is spent building relationships and mending others. So she ends up her relationship with Reaver and Jadis is probably the most adorable one. Jadis loves her. I mean, Niktos loves Jadis. We all love Jadis, right? Because Jadis is adorable. Jadis just cute. We love her. She's everything. We protect Jade. She's cute. Reaver too. It's just that Jadis is the one that's like the younger one, so we kind of get to see her more adorable side of it. And it's cute. So we have her we have Jadis really really getting to know her and trust her, and it's so cute because there's a scene where she jumps into into Sarah's lap and transforms into her mortal self, and she ends up like burying her face in Sarah's hair and falling asleep, and you find out that they will only sleep in their mortal form if they trust you. And I found that to be super cute and adorable. And it turns out that it's very possible that Jadis is reminded of her mother in Sarah, because Sarah turns out Sarah's hair is similar to it's a similar it's a darker shade, I think, but it's very similar to Jadis's mom's hair. But Jadis's mom died 2 years before, but they don't know if Jadis kind of remembers her, and Nektas hasn't asked, I guess not to bring the grief and stuff like that, to the kid. So they don't know. It is, but the theory is that it is very possible that she's reminded of her mom with Sarah. So she kind of just falls asleep with her. It's very cute. We see more of Niktos spoiling Jadis to no end. In the first book, he gave her bacon and stuff like that, and he's like, at some point there's a scene where he's like, okay, no more bacon. Nektas will burn me alive. If he finds out I'm giving you this, he said I'm not supposed to give this to you. I like this one part where she wants to eat food because Sarah is eating, and Jadis kind of is eyeing the bacon and stuff, and her eggs or whatever, and Sarah, more polite than Niktos, basically asks, "Hey, can she eat any of this or something or whatever?" She's like, I forgot what his response was, but one of the things that he said was like, she can pretty much eat anything if she can eat whatever, I guess. At the end, he tells her like she can eat whatever if you can get her to eat off a fork, right? because no one has gotten her to eat off a fork, right? So, but what's interesting is he's like, you think I don't know that Ash gives her bacon and whatever she wants? Like, you think I don't know that? He always knew this. And I love, though, at least Sarah is the polite one, though. It's kind of adorable. And then she does get Jadis to eat off a fork, which I think is great. It was such a cute scene. It was adorable. You should. I love it. It's really cute. One of the things. So that's one of the relationships we get to see the most. We of course get to see her and Niktos build a friendship and a physical relationship in a way. It's really interesting. One of the things that I think is very interesting that I do think could have been explored a little bit better, but we don't spend a lot of time exploring this. So in A Shadow in the Ember, when Sarah was taking a bath in her room, a guy attempts to kill her by strangling her. And she, throughout the beginning of the book, is not able to take baths. She, like, basically kind of scrubs herself clean, but she's not able to literally go into the tub, sit down, and actually take a bath, like an actual bath. And throughout the beginning of the book, throughout like the first like maybe 10, 15 chapters, maybe at most 20, this is the case. And she, Niktos kind of realizes that this is the case, right? Like he realizes that this is a thing when someone comes in and he's like, you know, asks if you want fresh water. So I like one of the staff members, I guess, asks if she wants fresh water. He's like, no, she's like, no, it's fine. I'll just use what's left in the right now. She's like, when Niktos comes in, because she keeps arguing with him, like, no, it's fine, I'll use it, it doesn't really matter, even though it's kind of grown cold or whatever. She, you know, he basically asks, okay, what's going on? And the kid explains to Niktos that, you know, he was trying to get her water because that was probably cold, and she said she'll just use the one that's in the morning, even though it's not fresh. And Niktos was like, okay, go ahead, I'll handle it, right? And I think it's an interesting thing because it's very thoughtful, because he tells her that's going to take him some time. And what he does do, though, is instead of filling up her water on the bath, he basically prepares her a bath in his room. And he's like, I should have realized, like, there were some concerns that you weren't using the bath water and stuff like that, and I should have realized that you probably wouldn't want to take a bath in a place that you were attacked, right? So I'll be outside the door, or I'll be outside in the room, basically just take all the time that you want. Like, take your time, take all the time that you want, basically. It's what he says. And then she does feel safer because he's basically outside in the room. So he won't let anything happen to her, like he never has. He's very adamant on not letting her get hurt, not allowing anyone else to hurt her. Basically, there was even a scene where he tells her, you know, because they were talking about Sarah's mom, whose name I genuinely don't remember or care to remember, and how you know, how things were for her, not just in the last 3 years, but her life in general, but especially like the last 3 years before Niktos before Niktos claimed her as his consort. So they were talking about that, and he's like, and he basically, even in the Shadow in the Ember, he when he rescued her from getting whipped by Tabius, and Tabius died by Sarah shoving a whip down his throat. He like her mom was basically you know, begging for his life. Even Niktos was a little bit surprised when Sarah was like, don't kill him, and she's like, you beg for his life. I'm like, and she's like, I don't beg for his life. And he gave her that death, right? And I found it kind of interesting because they're talking about that, and in the book, when they're about to leave in A Shadow in the Ember, she's like, can I let my family know, right? She's like, no, He tells her no, they'll be aware. And she's like, why can't I let them know? And he's like, because if I see that woman that calls herself your mother, I'm going to kill her. And in this book, it's kind of brought up again where he's like, just say the like, if you want your mother dead, basically, because of all the mistreatment she's given Sarah, just just say the word and it'll be done. And it's but also kind of adorable. It was kind of interesting to see that scene where he's super protective of her. She also becomes protective of him. She starts falling in love with him, and he probably doesn't fully realize it. Another thing that is explored that I think is really interesting in this book, a little bit more explored actually, is anxiety. Turns out that she has had anxiety for a short time, and she does things because things were always out of her control. So she does things like hold her breath for some time. Sometimes she'll go on. One of the things that we got was like he showed her a cavern that he has in his and like a pool that he has in his palace, and she like held her breath on her water, and he asks her like, why, and he asks her, why do you do that? I notice that you do that all the time. Like, why do you hold your breath? Why do you do this? And she explains, that she's like she that she does it because she has control over it and it helps her or whatever and things like that. And he does tell her, as long as you're not getting hurt and no one's getting hurt, it's fine. You could just have anxiety. And I thought that was really interesting that it was addressed, a topic of as anxiety, that they also met someone else that just had anxiety too, and they did specific things when they were I don't remember fully what they did, but it was like, you just have anxiety and whatever helps you will help you. And I think that was a really interesting thing to address. I found it really interesting. Another thing that I found really interesting is that Sarah is kind of just starting to get to know herself in this book, and I loved it because there were things that that she kind of discovers, like even when she is having sex with Niktos in one area. I think the question that he asks is, you like, because they were doing it in a specific way, and she's like, and he basically says the words, you like being dominated, and she says, I like to submit to you. And he seems to realize what that means. And by the end, in the when they're both climaxing, he says, you'll always be safe with me, Lisa. And I think that's very adorable, just because she hasn't felt safe with everybody all the time. And now she is, she does feel safe with Niktos. We get to see Ezra for a scene where they get to see each other, and they're like, Niktos really seems to like her. He also yells at her mom and be like, you're safe, your life is safe by a grace that isn't mine, so go on and live the rest of your undeserved life. Some of this stuff is extremely cathartic. I'm sorry. So she meets. So we see Ezra, and she doesn't explain. Sarah doesn't explain what's actually gonna happen, and she's like, okay, well, we understood to be happening is wrong. Just do what you can and prepare, because Ezra is demonstrated to be a better queen than the previous queen, not to mention than Tavius would have ever been. So he he tells her that and to prepare, and Ezra basically remarks that she's kind of surprised, that things worked out, because she always thought that the plan that they had for Sarah to seduce the Primal of Death wouldn't work, because she would eventually get impatient and just start stabbing him. So they're like, it wouldn't have worked, right? And it was really interesting. So they do that, and we also get to see, because they end up going to the pools of Divinash to find someone. I do want to give a content warning. I'm not gonna talk about it a lot. I'm actually not gonna mention it too much, but I do want to give a content warning right now in the book. And I hadn't actually somehow I literally somehow, like, I think my brain kind of jumped over it when I was reading A Shadow in the Ember, but I do want to give this for any new reader. There is a mention of attempted suicide in A Shadow in the Ember, and it is also brought back again in A Light in the Flame when they went to the pools of Divinash, and basically you have to like give it like a a little bit of your blood and the secret that then like basically give it something that is not known to anybody, and she kind of brings that up. So it's a very interesting. So yeah, it's brought up, and it's very very sad. So I did want to give you that content warning in case you are reading it. So yeah, so they find this god of like, I think it was like an older god of divination to let him basically, because the plan that Niktos has is to get the embers and transfer them to Niktos. That way he will ascend to being the primal of life, because as he was destined to be before Colas took Ethos's found a way to take Ethos's embers and basically become a primal of life. So, and make Ethos the primal of death. So before that can happen, before that would have happened, he would have actually been the primal of life. So the whole thing is to give her that, to get rid of the embers before and everything. And he's like, she'll probably be like any other godling. Like his theory is that she'll probably be like any other godling or something when he gets the embers out of her. So the plan is to do that. But they find out from this god, whose name I forgot, that the only way to take her embers is to take every drop of her blood. Like Niktos has to take every drop of her blood, including the embers, because they started to kind of merge with her. So because before it probably wouldn't have taken that, but it would have taken him taking the every drop of her blood. Niktos almost kills the god and says maybe sometime in the abyss will help you come up with a better answer. Sarah has to stop him, and she talks to him like, yeah, this might be the only way. Okay, but when you do it at my lake. And he promises he would. This happens to be, I think, the day after they get married, and the coronation of her as the consort is made. By the way, there's a bit of a nod to Blood and Ash here, because they have like the marriage imprints, and they're basically like I forgot what it looks like. It's like swirls in the hands, and it's like that's their marriage imprint, which is also a thing in Blood and Ash. And also, interesting thing, as a wedding gift or a coronation gift, Niktos gives her a horse named Gala. Oh, she's interesting. I have a soft spot for animals in any case. No, sorry. One of the things that also comes up, which I thought was really interesting, and borderline creepy, same thing with Castile in this area. Castile in Blood and Ash, before he kind of knew Poppy, he stalked her and knew her routines, and that's how he was able to get close to her in order to, use her as an exchange to get his brother back. So that was a thing that he did. Although borderline creepy, Niktos mainly seems to have done it to check in on her once in a while. Like, he checked in on her when she was a child or whatever, and she did ask, like, why didn't you approach me? And she's like, because it would have been creepy, I'm technically a grown male, it would have been creepy if you were a child. She's like, yeah, it would have been creepy, but isn't it creepy that you also kind of stalked me or whatever? She's like, yeah, I'd say that's borderline creepy. It is borderline creepy. At least he never approached, and he also didn't do it often, but still, he did know that she came to swim out in her lake. So, and he did once in a while too. He also did once in a while too, and one of the things that she asked him when he showed her the cavern, like, why did you go to my lake when you had this pool in your palace? And he's like, I don't know, because it was your lake. It was kind of adorable. And one of the things we find out at the end, which is what we're getting to soon, is that she's had these like dreams. She had these dreams at least twice in the book. Sarah had these dreams where she was swimming in her lake. She was swimming, and there was like a white wolf in the riverbanks, but she continued to swim. And there is some foreshadowing about the wolf because there is a crest that the crest has a white wolf in both Colas and Nyctos' court. Like it's very similar with the white wolf. And he said it was because his father found the white wolves, I think, to be strong and like really loyal, and that was a thing that we find out. And in the end, we're heading there soon, but she has a realization that the white wolf was Ash. It was Nyctos there. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I want to know how that's going to come up in the next book. It was a weird realization after Colas was holding her and cradling her after he found out it was Zutoria. After she found out she was Zutoria, which we'll talk about in a minute. One of the things I kind of forgot to mention, because I was talking about the relationship between Jadis and Sarah, and as well as Reaver and Sarah. Reaver is starting to show his protective side for Sarah, and I thought that was kind of cute. There was a scene. They have a scene where she there was a night. She had like dinner, I think, with some people in a receiving chamber, and they went in to her room, and she's like, "Okay, you want to hang out?" And he went into the room, and it seems like he knew that she needed company. I think she was anxious that day. I'm pretty sure. It did. I'm pretty sure it happened like after she found out that, a little bit after, if not slightly before. Actually, I think a little bit before. Maybe. I can't quite remember if it was before or after. Wait. No, before. This was before she found out about the embers. This was the point she got mad at Nyctos. She was really mad at Nyctos. This was somewhere when she was mad at Nyctos for the thing with Veses, which we'll talk about in a minute. But she basically he was giving her some company, and she felt something, and she's like, "Oh, did you hear that?" She's like, "No, he didn't hear anything. He didn't seem to have felt anything." And she was doing her hair or whatever, and then her door gets blown open, only for Veses to come. And Reaver, she tries to keep Reaver behind her, but there is a point in the scene where he basically strikes Veses and burns her, and she strikes Reaver, and probably almost kills him. Like he literally ended up transformed into his mortal self and everything, and Veses is just like, okay, he's probably not that hurt, and he should have known better than to strike me. Like she did not, like she was just behaving like this, and she basically, and Nyctos does come in, knocks her out, puts her in a cell, and Sarah brings back and heals or brings back Reaver, and he calls her Lisa, of course, and she holds him and takes care of him a little bit, and it's like it was kind of adorable between them, because he is starting to show that he was trying to protect her, so it definitely starts kind of foreshadowing that he might protect her later on. I don't know if we'll see that in the books, but I feel like he won't be bonded to Nyctos. I feel like Reaver will be bonded to Sarah. That is my belief, that he will be bonded to Sarah. And if that's the case, oh yay! Jadis might end up being bonded to Sarah, although who knows? I don't know. I love it either way. It'll be amazing. But one of the things, but that's a thing that I thought I'd mention. When it comes to Veses, we find out a couple of things. So Sarah was walking in, I think, to tell Nyctos that, yeah, I want to be your consort. After she basically found the pools of Divinash and got what she wanted, she was going to tell him, I want to be your consort, things like that. Like it's not just in name. And she ends up walking in to Veses on Nyctos' lap, and her feeding off him and seemingly having sex with him. And she gets mad. She almost brought down the palace on everybody. He had to compel her to sleep, and she ended up sleeping for 3 days. So that was interesting. That was an interesting one. She ends up getting mad at him enough where she says after everything, after they figure all this out, after they get rid of Cola, she wants her freedom. And she makes this deal, but they still kind of get along and okay. And he ended up just becoming, they just acted kind of almost like co-workers for a time. She kind of treated him like a co-worker for a short time, and then they kind of built up a friendship, and it's like, okay, even though I don't understand what's happening, she seems to have slightly forgiven him. And then the day of the coronation, she remembers that I think it was Rain that mentioned, like, you don't know what he sacrificed for you. And she asks Rain before the coronation, what did he sacrifice? She's like, in a couple of hours, I'll have a lot of authority from to you from you. I'll have a little bit of authority over you. And he's like, yeah. Well, I don't. And she's like, I don't want to use that kind of authority. Can you please tell me what exactly he sacrificed? And she's like, I'll order it either way. I just don't want to have to order you to tell me. And he explains that they didn't know at first why Veses was coming to Niktos or whatever, because he hated her, and everybody pretty much dislikes her in the castle. They weren't sure why she was seeing Niktos. And then he explains that they found out that he made a deal in order to protect Sarah, where he would attend to Vesey's needs, usually for feeding, for take the blood. Basically, he would feed her. He would allow her to feed from him as long as it kept Sarah safe. And this has been going on for years. And she feels kind of bad, but she was also so mad that she was just like, I want to kill her. And he's like, no, stop it. And Rain kind of realized what got you mad that day was that you walked in on them, right? And he, her and Ash later have a conversation where he finds out about what happened, I think it explains. I think they kind of talk about it, what happens, and it's like, and it turns out that Veses followed him to the mortal realm and kind of found out about the whole mortal consort thing, and he basically agreed to basically feed her, and she can either make it pleasurable or painful, of course, but either way, he was kind of forced to do this in order to keep her safe, and he did it before even knowing her, which, oh, Niktos, sweet and adorable. And he, anytime, what's interesting in this book is that anytime she shows him any kind of love or emotion, he himself gets slightly emotional, where he just reacts in an unusual way, because I guess he doesn't expect it, is what I'm getting at. And from what I read, is what I got, is that he doesn't seem to expect it or understand why she feels this emotional toward him. And that was one of those times when they were just talking after the coronation, where she, I think there was like a display of emotion from her, and he drops like his glass of wine. There was glass in his hand and everything, and she ends up removing glass from his hand and stuff like that. And there was that they had a conversation, and then at some point they fall asleep that night, and he was going to get out of bed because he explains that he should not be there because he is hungry. He needed blood, and he's hungry, and he is concerned as to what would happen, and he should be there, but he also didn't want to wake her up, it seems. So it reminds me a little bit of A Shadow in the Ember, when she offers herself for him to feed, and he's like, I haven't fed for some time now, I actually could hurt you. And she's like, you're not gonna hurt me, right? Like, she acted like that. And during that, in that time where they were, she's like, if you're hungry, like, take my blood. And he didn't want to do that. So what she did, and she realized she had to do, is make it his choice, right? Make it so that it's under his own circumstances, since Veses kind of took that away from him, so he was probably afraid to feed because of it. And she's like, I'm your consort, I want to help you. and that was how she got him to feed, and he did, and it's adorable and really cute. And now at the end of the book, now we're at the end where we see Colas again. Basically, after they find out how the embers, they walk into a bunch of people, even gods killed and so on. Like, there is a lot going on. They walk into chaos and blood, and this primal killing people, and there is a fight. Sarah ends up bringing back Ios and tries to bring back Ector, but she couldn't. So, but I don't know if she was. It seems like she was not able to bring him back. So I guess we'll find out how that would work. But we find out that she, we basically they were sent, and in the chaos of the fight, where they were fighting all these people, they, oh, one of the things I forgot to mention is that she brought the Draken she killed at Colas's request back to life. But yeah, anyway, we ended up we find out there's a fight and everything, and at this point she has been charmed. Penelope charmed her, and if she didn't leave willingly with someone, no one could take her away from where she is, unless the only way that the charm would break is if she willingly gave herself up. And so she does get threatened by Actus, I think is his name, where she's like, if you come with us, no one else is going to die, and stuff like that. And she agrees. She goes along with it, which is a little bit different when I meant about taking a different turn than I expected from Blood and Ash, because we have this is moving a little bit faster than Blood and Ash. First of all, Blood and Ash is in its 4th book, and this is in its 3rd, and we are already. It took the 4th book, like the 3rd book, to kind of get into the bigger story, right? But this one, we're getting into the bigger story for pretty quickly, which makes me think that there is going to be maybe 4-5 books, while Blood and Ash has 6, or maybe it'll be 3 to 4 books, depending on what happens. It could be about 4 books, actually. I feel like it could be 4 to 5, but not 6, because of the way that this one is structured. But Blood and Ash, at the end, it's very similar to the ending of Gilded Bones, where we have, or the Crown of Gilded Bones, where we have the capture happening, but Castile gives himself up to so that the Queen Isbeth stops making Poppy suffer. So we see that happening, and then this time, Sarah gives herself up, and she's taken to Colas, and she's put in a cage. It is explained earlier. It's explained that Ios kind of was in Colas' court and was one of his favorites, and it is explained that she was basically in a cage, it's basically there for the god to look for Colas. She's basically there for Colas to look at and I guess do whatever he wants. But quick content warning right now for sexual assault. That's another thing. A content warning for assault in A Light in the Flame. There is a content warning for that. It's mentioned. There's no explicit stuff about it, but I am going to mention it now. So quick verbal content warning for that right now. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but basically, once his favored are usually put in the cage for him to look at. They're kind of like pretty, and they kind of get pretty much everything. They have everything. They have jewels. They have food. They pretty much have anything they could probably want. And he talks to them. He looks at them. I guess I don't know what else he may do with him. But when they're no longer his favorites, they are basically given to the gods and his guards and his court in general, where every manner of things can happen, including sexual assault. So that's what happens, and she was warned about this by Ios, who did talk to her. because they were gonna since they were summoned to Colus's court the first time. And now at the end she wakes up in a cage, and it's after she has that dream about the white wolf again, I think. And Colus basically has his villain moment where he's like, you know, did you think I didn't know about the deal? I know because your father summoned me, not unintentionally, but he summoned me when when you were born. He's like, I don't want my little girl to suffer through this. I want her to, he wanted to try to cancel the deal because he didn't want her to suffer. And it seems that has gotten him killed. And that got him killed. And he always knew about the deal. It was kind of just waiting for it to happen. And now that she's here, he will ascend himself and will take the embers of life from her. And what he does is he does bite her, and he starts taking her blood. And now we have Zutoria just responding, "You're killing me again." So if I did not mention it in the first book review, spoiler review for A Shadow in the Ember, Zutoria is what most people believe is a legend, but it turns out it's not. Turns out it's true. And basically, what ended up happening is that Colus, when he was the primal of death, he fell in love with a woman, supposedly at first sight. He saw her picking flowers and fell in love immediately, and approached her and scared her so much that she jumped off a cliff. Yeah, that happened, apparently, in this world. She jumped off a cliff. She jumped off basically what is known as the Cliffs of Sorrow. And by the way, the story of Zutoria and the Cliffs of Sorrow is mentioned. It is mentioned in Blood and Ash, and it makes me wonder how Ian knew about it from Blood and Ash. It makes me think that maybe the Queen told him all about it because she did believe him. She did consider him like one of her own in a way until she killed him, and she's like, "Look what you did! You made me kill my one I considered my own son." It's very interesting. So it makes me wonder how Ian knew about it, but I'm assuming that because Isbeth probably knew about it, so she probably knew about it because of the man that she loved. So that's what I'm thinking happened. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, he scared her so much that she jumped off a cliff. So he went to. This is the reason that technically this is why Colus is now the primal of life. Basically, he went to Ethos, and he asked, "Can you bring her back to life?" Because he had done it to some mortals, and his choice. But he had rules when he brought people to life. Ethos's rule is that he will bring them back if, I guess, they weren't past the veil. Like if they were in the veil already, he will not bring them back. So Ethos said no, even though he done it for multiple people, because she was content with her death. Zutoria was okay with the fact that she died, so she passed the veil really quickly. Like her soul was already there, and she passed it very quickly. So she was very much content with her passing. But Colus could not let it go. He eventually found a way to take the embers from Ethos and become the primal of life. He brought Zutoria back to life, and it is said that she wasn't happy. Like she was already in a peaceful death. Like she was already in peace, in the veil, and he disturbed her peace by bringing her back. So she was unhappy for this second life. And when she died, in order for Colus not to touch her, he and Kila, the primal rebirth, basically kind of worked together. And what they did is they made Zutoria's soul be reborn. Every time she died, she would just be reborn. And she had a bunch of reincarnations, a bunch of people, and now she is part of Sarah, and seemingly a separate soul from Sarah because of the rage and everything. Yes, her choice was taken from her, but at least Colus wasn't touching her. You know what I mean? It was a way to prevent, although it was a questionable choice by Ethos, it was a way to prevent Colus from bringing her back and disturbing her peace further. which we can understand, right? I think. So that was the thing. So so now she's part of Sarah and seemingly a separate soul because she's like, because Sarah says that Sarah kind of makes a point to say that it wasn't a thing from her. It was like another voice when she said, "You're killing me again," and Sarah kind of just explains who she is. And like that he put Zutoria in her soul in the mirror bloodline, and he at first he doesn't believe it, and then you get Actus. I mean, it could be true, like that he that um Ethos would have done anything for you to basically fuck you over. And he hugs her and cradles her, and then randomly she gets like this image of the white wolf, and she realizes it's Ash. So that is how the book ends. My predictions. First of all, in the third book, I really feel now that they're separated, I feel like it's gonna follow the format of Blood and Ash, specifically the War of Two Queens, where it is going to have both Nyctos and Sarah's point of views. Nyctos will probably declare war. There will probably be a war now. Sarah is now basically in Colus's custody. Nyctos will most likely declare war. That is my opinion. He will declare war. And there will be a division between Primals. Those who were loyal to who Ethos used to be, and those who have a lot to gain with Colus being the king of gods. So there is probably going to be a primal war. Meanwhile, we are going to have Sarah at court. I feel like he might keep her in the cage. I feel like Colus might keep Sarah in the cage, at least for some time. And then eventually he might grow to trust her, I think he might grow to trust her. And then she's going to use that trust. Zutoria, at least, will use that trust to get her vengeance. And oh, that's going to be glorious. So she's probably going to get some vengeance. And maybe she'll probably get out halfway through the book or something. Or at least a third through. Or at least on the last third, and then she's gonna join the war efforts, and she's gonna be like, okay, she's gonna have her vengeance. She's gonna be like, okay, he needs to die. Like, the vengeance is mainly for Zutoria, but it's like, okay, but she also now has a reason to be angry. So it will be, I feel like both of them are kind of gonna work together. I don't think there will be an actual communication because it seems like Zutoria is mainly using Sarah as a vessel when she needs to communicate. So I feel like that's going to be a thing, right? So Zutoria is going to get her vengeance. And Sarah is definitely going to help her get her vengeance, right? So I feel like that's going to be a thing. And then she's going to join the war effort, is like, okay, he needs to die, So I feel like Sarah is gonna do some things in that court to make it so that Nyctos has an easier time getting rid of him. I also think we might end up having Sarah's ascension, but yeah, I feel like that's gonna be a thing. And I also feel like Colus might try to convince her to work together with him to basically give life to his creations. Ooh, that reminds me, speaking of creations, I don't know if he was not a big character in Blood and Ash, but Callum is here. So it looks like Callum will survive whatever it is however they end up getting rid of however they end up locking Nyctos not Nyctos, Colus up in the temple. However they end up doing that, because I don't think he even had a body, or barely, if anything. So they will, however they end up doing that, it seems like Callum will escape or something, because Callum is with Isbeth. So Callum probably influenced he probably slightly influenced Isbeth a little bit in trying to get Colus to live, or Colus back. So yeah, Callum is here, and Callum returns in Blood and Ash. I cannot wait to see how that is going to work out. I'm super excited. You have no idea how excited I am. I'm excited for the third book. Like, so excited. Like, can we have it now, please? Currently, it is. I did find the untitled third book, and it is in my TBR on Goodreads. I do check often to see if there is something. So far, there's nothing on that, but there's also nothing on the fifth book of Blood and Ash. That has me concerned. When is that coming out? I need it. I need it. So I'm very excited. So those are my thoughts. That's just my spoilery discussion on A Light in the Flame. I gave you some of these theories there. Ooh, wait, one more, because I talked about this in my reactions, and I will be remiss not to do it again. I do think that Niktos can love. I do think he can. I think he feels more for her than just caring. I feel like he definitely loves her. And I feel like his cardia either... I don't think it can get put back, but like maybe there's another way that he loves. I don't know. I feel like he does. I genuinely feel like he does. I mentioned that I think that it's possible for it to grow back, like his love to be kind of formed again, I think. I don't remember the exact wording I used, but I do feel like he does love her, and I feel like he'll find out a little bit more about that in the third book, especially when she has to ascend, and because he doesn't want to go through with taking every drop of blood and taking the embers, and it is possible that it's just because he cares about her, but I also feel like he loves her because there were other things too, like like he seems to love her, and I feel like you'll find that a little bit more in the third book. One of the things that kind of has me toward this is there is a part after they've had sex where he there were a couple of parts where he's just like, I wish, and he never finishes the sentence. And then there's a part, and I think it happens after they find out that that's the only way to get the embers from her, where he's like, I wish I could love. For the first time, I wish I could love. I feel like he does. There has to be something. I feel like he does love, and I just don't know how, though. I feel like that'll be explained at some point, but I feel like he definitely loves. I love it. So cute. I love this book. 5 stars. Everything's amazing. That's it. That's my thought. Like, this book is so good. It's so good. I love it. Anyway, that's my spoilery discussion. Let me know what you think in the comments. I want to know everything. Give me spoilers, and just warn everybody else, I guess, if you're giving me spoilers. But I want to know everything. Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this very long video. I'm still in love with this book, and I cannot wait to read the next one. The one update I will give you is that there is currently a title on Goodreads for the next book, and it is A Fire in the Flesh. That's the title that's currently on Goodreads, and it's supposed to be released. Hold on, we're gonna check Goodreads. I can't remember the date, but I know it's supposed to be next year. But this is the update I want to give because I feel like it's important to give you guys some updates. So I just like to add, I'm adding these in because I like them. But basically, so A Fire in the Flesh is out. There is no, not out, but like there is, it's like that's a title on Goodreads. There is no description, but get this, it's the final book in the Flesh and Fire series. I will be honest and say I was a little bit surprised because Blood and Ash is going to be 6 books. And we are currently only on the 4th book. Yeah, I was surprised. But A Fire in the Flesh, the only thing that it says right now on the description is the final book in the Flesh and Fire series. That's all it says. And it is expected to be published December 12th, 2023. So know that. And when I get something, I'll be doing a blind anticipates on it. Don't worry, we're getting that. Whenever I get a description, I'll be doing the I'll be doing a blind anticipates on it. I promise you. I'm very excited for the third book. I have my mind is like turning, like I have theories, and I need to I will be rereading everything probably when the next book comes out for Blood and Ash, which, by the way, quick Blood and Ash update as well. The next book has been titled The Primal of Blood and Bone, but there is no description, so I'm waiting for a description to give you a... There's also no release date that I can see on Goodreads. I'm also waiting for that so I can give you something with those. But yeah, that is what I can say. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a like and let me know in the comment section your thoughts on A Light in the Flame. Consider subscribing to my channel. I usually post on Wednesdays, where I post writing vlogs and also just writing based videos. I just post vlogs in general on Wednesdays. Reactions are posted on Fridays, and generally book reviews are posted on Sundays. Usually I post at 5 a.m. if possible, and if everything has been kind of scheduled ahead of time. So keep an eye out for my videos if you're interested. And if you want to see my writing, you can also subscribe to my blog, where I post on Sundays. I post reviews and also creative work, so you can see that stuff there. And right now, one of my best achievements there is Daughter of Death, as well as A Selfish Choice. These are a poem and short story and a poem respectively. So yeah, feel free to subscribe. You'll find it in my description. And I'll see you in my next video. Consume stories. Until next time. Bye.